comment is asking how I healed, or if I have healed, or what I'm doing to heal my sexual trauma in adulthood. I think this was left a while ago. I'm sorry that I'm just now seeing it. For some reason, I don't always get notifications of comments on TikTok. If anybody knows why that is and can help me fix that, or is that just like a common error on TikTok? I have my settings so that it does not filter like potentially bullying comments or whatever, but I still miss them somehow. Anyway, I definitely have not like completely healed my sexual trauma. I'm very much trying to work on it though. And I'm coming at it from a lot of different angles, kind of try all the things and see what sticks, I guess. I've read multiple books and I'm still reading, I'm in the middle of another book on CSA trauma, and I think that in and of itself can be quite helpful. Sometimes with trauma there's like a tendency to just want to avoid because it's so triggering, and I think that not letting yourself avoid is often a good first step. Obviously you want to not completely throw yourself in the deep end and like completely trigger yourself constantly either, but I definitely was too avoidant for too long. I have two therapists and I talk to both of them about my sexual trauma, and sometimes we just do like kind of regular talk therapy, and other times we do parts work. One of my therapists does IFS parts work, another I think might be Gestalt based, I'm not 100% sure, but he does more like kind of inner child work, and I definitely find parts work has been very helpful for me at times. To a degree, for me, like there's a whole lot of just shame around anything related to sex, sexuality, my body, my sexual trauma, like so much shame. And so for me, this that I'm doing right here actually is healing. There is a therapist on here who does lives, usually a couple of times a week, that are specific to CSA survivors, and I find those live chats really helpful. Her name is Abby. Her username is People Make Sense. I really like her little community, and her chats have definitely helped me. If that particular chat isn't your thing, I think making friends with survivors can be really helpful. Sexual trauma is quite common, but it's rare to really hear people talk about it. And so I think because of that, it's easy to feel really alone in not necessarily just your experience, but in the specific ways that it impacts you. Like it's hard to know what other people are struggling with, like in their bedroom life or that kind of a thing. And so finding spaces where people are talking about it can be really helpful. It is quite slow work for me personally, at least, but working towards being more embodied during anything that you do that is sensual or sexual is really helpful. The book that I'm in the middle of reading right now is called Healing Sex, and that is on somatically healing sexual trauma. I find that particularly helpful because it's really all about embodiment. A lot of times people with CSA trauma have a tendency to have fawn responses or freeze responses, and something that I've learned from largely from Abby and her chat that I mentioned earlier is that one of the best ways to kind of combat that is to get back in touch with your healthy anger or your fight response. And I've definitely found that to be true. The more I find my own voice, my own backbone, the more I set boundaries, the more I get in touch with my authentic self, the more safe I feel, and kind of the more it's kind of about building self-trust to a degree through like taking better care of yourself and not people pleasing or fawning as much. And through that safety comes empowerment in general, but that translates to the bedroom, for me at least. If you want to check out the collections that I have collections for multiple books that have good content for CSA survivors, in my humble opinion. Those playlists include the book Trauma and Recovery, the book The Courage to Heal, the book Sexual Anorexia, and as I mentioned, I'm only partway through it, but the book Healing Sex. Another thing that I think is true for trauma in general, but I have found it particularly meaningful with my sexual traumas, is in order to really work on changing something, as counterproductive as it can feel, it really helps to empathize with the protective strategies that you have had. So like for example, I mentioned the embodiment is really hard for me. So historically, the way that I found a way to enjoy intimacy was through being very like in my head about the experience rather than in my body. And while I am wanting to heal that, I am wanting to have more embodied intimacy. I have to kind of not shame or judge or be critical of my history of being in my head during intimacy in order to work on changing that. I can't like easily explain why that is, but I have my therapists both kind of push self compassion and whatever, and over and over again with all kinds of traumas, but especially this trauma. I have found that the more I can empathize with myself, and for me, like these traumas were like 9 to 15 or so, and so for me, it's really like my older child self and my younger teen self. I had to, and I used to like think back to being 10, 12, 14 years old and really not like myself, even in my own memories. Like, I'd be really harsh to when thinking about myself at those ages. And that was a real sign that I had a lot of healing work to do on those versions of my inner child. But as I have done work on the traumas that I was going through at those ages, the less judgmental I feel of them and the more compassion I have for them. And that ironically then allows me to work on healing the patterns that were started because of that. It's almost like if you have a pattern and you're like, stop being like that, that's bad, they're gonna just be like, heck you back. And so if you, it's like you have to hold their hand and convince them rather than trying to just say like, hey, get out of here. Sorry, I'm a dork, but I hope you I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.